Have you ever found yourself in one of those situations? You know, the ones where you're suddenly put on the spot. Maybe you're asked to give a wedding toast you didn't prepare for. Or you log into a virtual meeting and find yourself unexpectedly face to face with the CEO.
Mm.
Or you're at some party, maybe a bit swanky, and a colleague introduces you to a key contact, and boom, it's your turn to shine. And you just freeze.
That familiar feeling of panic, right? Or worse, totally freezing up. Like, remember when director Michael Bay just fumbled his teleprompter at CES
Oh, yeah.
and just walked off stage?
Yeah. Exactly. You can practically feel the cringe, even now. So today, we're doing a deep dive all about navigating those moments, those high-pressure, spontaneous communication situations. Our mission, really, is to give you a practical, actionable roadmap to turn that anxiety into, well, opportunity, helping you think faster and talk smarter when you're put on the spot. We've drawn from this really insightful guide by a leading communication expert. It's packed with surprising insights and strategies for anyone. It doesn't matter if you think you have natural talent or not.
Yeah.
That initial jolt of panic, it feels so universal.
It really is.
And our sources highlight just how common these impromptu challenges are and, frankly, how much they can hold us back. What are some of the standout stories from the research that really show this?
What's fascinating how often people just assume the ability to improvise, on the fly is some kind of inborn talent. But our source really challenges this. Think about the story of Myrma. She chose a career as a research librarian specifically to avoid impromptu speaking. Yeah, after just one embarrassing high school incident, it put massive constraints on her life, as the source says. Or there's Kress, brilliant idea at a software startup, right? But it was completely disregarded because he just froze up.
Yeah.
Seemed nervous when they asked him to elaborate.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it ended up costing him his job. And then the company actually adopted his idea later, but only when a new team could advocate for it persuasively.
Those stories really hit home. So what does this mean for you listening right now? It means these aren't just like isolated incidents. They're common. They're high-stakes moments that can significantly impact our careers, our lives even, and that vicious cycle. Nerves lead to poor performance, which then feeds right back into more nerves.
Well, it's something many of us experience. It's not really about being gifted. It sounds like it's truly about preparation, about having a toolkit ready.
That's exactly it, a
Yeah.
toolkit. Speaking of that toolkit, before we can even think about talking smarter, we need to calm that voice inside, the one saying, I can't do this. Our source calls this creating a personalized anxiety management plan, or AMP. Uh, Can you maybe break down the different ways this anxiety shows up?
Absolutely. We can sort of group the symptoms of speaking anxiety into ABCs. It's a helpful way to think about it. First, affective symptoms. These relate to our emotions, right? Like stress or feeling really vulnerable. Then there are behavioral physiological symptoms. Those physical reactions, sweat, shaky voice, maybe a dry mouth, the things people often notice first.
Right, the physical tells.
Exactly. And finally, cognitive issues, those mental blocks like completely blanking out or that relentless negative self-talk. That's often fueled by what psychologists call the spotlight effect, the feeling that everyone is intensely focused on your every move.
Ah, the spotlight effect. So it's really about remembering that most people are actually starring in their own movie, not yours, in those moments. They're probably not noticing as much as we think.
Precisely. They're often more worried about themselves. And the good news is, our source provides practical tactics for each of these ABCs. So for those affective symptoms, the emotional ones, try mindfulness. Just acknowledging the unpleasant feelings without beating yourself up over them. It creates a kind of psychological distance. Like saying, okay, I feel this anxiety, but I'm not consumed by it.
That's a powerful reframing. Just noticing it, not judging it. Okay, what about the physical stuff? The shaky voice or that awful dry mouth?
Yeah, for the behavioral physiological symptoms, a really simple trick is to cool your body. Literally. Holding something cold like a water bottle. I actually keep one handy for big presentations myself. It sounds basic, but it helps ground you.
Never thought of that.
And to combat dry mouth, sip warm water beforehand, or maybe chew gum before you speak. It helps stimulate saliva. And for those cognitive symptoms, the nimble ones, rationalize. Remind yourself that the worst outcomes you're imagining, they rarely happen. They're usually not that bad. And remember, like you said, people are often more focused on themselves. That spotlight isn't as bright as it feels.
I love that. Okay, and what about those annoying filler words like, I'm definitely guilty of those sometimes. Is there a trick for that?
There is actually a really clever trick. Sync your speaking with your breath. Get this. It's nearly impossible to say anything while you're inhaling.
Oh,
So
got
you
it.
time your exhalation to finish your sentences or phrases. Then you have to inhale for the next phrase. It forces a natural, clean pause. Think of it like a gymnast sticking their landing. It feels intentional.
Like a built-in pause button. I like that.
It's surprisingly effective. And look, if you do get flustered mid-sentence,
Yeah.
you can buy yourself time. Just pose a generic question to your audience. Something like, before we move on, maybe take a moment to think about how you might apply what we've just discussed to your own work.
Ah, that shifts the focus off you. Gives you a second to regroup. Clever.
Exactly. Buys you that crucial moment.
That makes so much sense. So for you, the listener, imagine having a personalized, spontaneous speaking toolkit ready. Maybe it's a cold bottle of water, like the expert suggested, or a lozenge for dry mouth, maybe even a note card with a quick affirmation. How might customizing a kit like that help you feel more secure and ready for those unexpected moments? Now, what I found particularly eye-opening in the source was this next concept. It feels almost backward at first. Expert, can you walk us through this idea of striving for mediocrity? It sounds so counterintuitive if you want to impress spontaneously.
It is counterintuitive, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's precisely why it's so powerful. To truly do our best in spontaneous speaking, we actually need to stop aiming for perfection and, as the source puts it, strive for mediocrity. In improv comedy, the philosophy is good enough is great. They even say dare to be dull.
Dare to be dull. Okay, unpack that.
Well, two distinct mental processes really thwart us when we aim for perfect or right. First, heuristics. These are basically our mental shortcuts. They're incredibly efficient for daily tasks, right? Like quickly choosing spaghetti sauce at the grocery store without analyzing every single ingredient.
Sure, saves time.
Definitely. But they can limit spontaneity and creativity in more complex situations. Remember that classic because experiment?
Vaguely. Remind me.
People were much more likely to let someone cut in line if they just added the word because.
Hmm.
Even if the reason given was totally trivial, like, because I need to make copies. It shows how we go on autopilot. We hear the structure, the because, and we just sort of comply. IDEO, the big design firm, when they were redesigning an ER, they famously looked at Formula One pit crews.
Not other hospitals.
Right, not other hospitals. They wanted to break free from the usual healthcare heuristics. And that led to innovations like pre-assembled repair kits, totally inspired by the pit crew model.
Wow. That IEO example really shows how breaking those mental shortcuts can unlock creativity. Okay, so heuristics is one. What's the second mental process holding us back?
The second is excessive self-evaluation. We just get stuck beating ourselves up. There's this improv game called Shout the Wrong Name, where the goal is just to shout any name that isn't the correct one for an object. People really struggle. They freeze trying to find the right wrong name.
Huh, I can see that, overthinking it.
Exactly. This constant self-critique taxes our cognitive capacities. It eats up brain power, preventing us from being focused or creative.
So if daring to be dull is the antidote, how do we actually do that? What does it look like in practice?
It means simply focusing on the core task, relaying the information we have to our audience. Nothing more, nothing less. It's about letting go of that immense pressure to be brilliant or perfectly witty or, profoundly insightful in every single utterance. This mindset frees up all those cognitive resources we typically waste on judgment and self-critique.
That's a huge shift. So it's less like a performance and more like a conversation.
Exactly. That distinction is key.
Because if you're treating it like a performance, you might use colder, more formal language, right? Trying to sound impressive. But in a conversation, you'd naturally use more inclusive language. Like we maybe pose more questions, make it feel like a two-way street.
Precisely. The source mentions a Nobel laureate who actually improved his public speaking by structuring his talks around the research questions he was answering. He treated his presentations as answers to the audience's unasked questions. Very conversational.
That's a great example.
And this whole approach also leads to reframing mistakes. Not as failures, but as mistakes. Opportunities for learning. When you let go of that need for perfection, every little flip-up becomes just a chance to adapt and maybe learn something.
So, for you, the listener, think about a time you had a really successful, spontaneous conversation. Not a speech, a conversation. What did it feel like when you weren't overanalyzing every word? Can you maybe carry that dare to be dull mindset, that focus on connection over perfection into your next impromptu moment? Knowing that good enough truly is great. Okay, so we've managed the jitters, we've embraced imperfection, maybe even dared to be dull. The next big hurdle seems to be how we actually see these spontaneous moments. Expert, our source suggests we need to redefine them, move them from the threat column to the opportunity column in our minds. How do we make that shift?
Yeah, that's a crucial reframing. It involves 4 key mindset shifts, according to the source. First, moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. This builds on Carol Dweck's work, which is just profound. Instead of believing your abilities like speaking ability are fixed and unchangeable, you embrace the idea that skills can be learned, that performance can be improved.
So believing you can get better.
Exactly. The source notes this makes you less anxious about public speaking and way more open to feedback. It's about believing in your potential to grow.
Okay, so it's not about being born a great speaker, but about becoming one. That's really empowering. What's the second shift?
Second, shifting your focus from you to your audience. It's natural when situations feel threatening to focus inward, on ourselves. How am I doing? Do I look nervous?
Totally. Self-consciousness takes over.
Right. But if you intentionally shift your attention outward to your audience, who are these people really? What do they care about? What do they need? Something changes. You realize most people, even interviewers or senior colleagues, actually want us to succeed. They're not usually hoping you'll flounder. The source mentions a Google executive, Kathy Bonanno, who focuses on creating a good moment with the person asking the question. It's about connecting with their needs.
Shifting from self-preservation to service, almost. I like that. Okay, what's number 3?
The third shift is moving from yes, but, or even just a flat no, to yes, and. This is a cornerstone of improvisation.
Ah, the improv principle.
Exactly. It encourages you to affirm what others say, the yes part, and then build upon it, the and part. Instead of immediately critiquing or shutting down ideas, think of that imaginary gift game in improv. Partners have to exuberantly accept these ridiculous imaginary gifts, like a broken toaster, and then immediately justify why it's amazing.
All right, you have to roll with it.
You have to roll with it. It forces deep listening and makes you relinquish control, which can lead to these wonderful and unexpected interactions. The author actually applied this when helping 2 regional managers resolve a conflict over hiring someone. Instead of letting them just say yes, but, he reframed it to find common ground, the yes, and.
That yes and mindset seems so powerful for collaboration, not just improv. It makes sense it would apply here too. Okay, what's the final mindset shift?
And the fourth one is moving from dwelling on what happened to focusing on the next play. Basically, don't ruminate on gaffes or mistakes. There's a great story about improv expert Patricia Ryan Madsen, who completely blew her cue during a big Stanford commencement ceremony.
Ouch. In front of everyone.
Big time. But she said later, it's not the mistake that matters nearly as much as your recovery, how you handle it. This is just like Coach K's famous next play philosophy from basketball. He'd tell his players, whatever you have just done, good or bad, is not nearly as important as what you're doing right now. Focus forward.
Let it go and move on.
Exactly. You can even practice this with a simple game called New Choice. If you flub a line in practice, just say, New Choice, and restart. It trains your brain to pivot quickly.
That next play idea really resonates, letting go of that mental replay of what went wrong. The author apparently experienced these shifts firsthand when facing the difficult task of laying off employees.
Yeah, he reframed those incredibly tough conversations, saw them not just as endings, but as opportunities to help his team members plan their next steps, even brainstorming future career possibilities with them. He really mobilized all 4 shifts.
Wow. Turning a negative into a forward-looking opportunity. So, for you, the listener, think about this. What's one area of your life where you tend to dwell on past mistakes? Maybe beat yourself up a bit. How might adopting that next play mindset help you move forward more effectively? Whether it's after a flubbed presentation or this a tricky conversation that didn't go perfectly. Okay, next up. It might sound really simple, maybe even obvious, but truly listening. That seems to be presented as a kind of superpower in spontaneous communication. It's not just about hearing the words, right? It's about understanding the deeper stuff, emotions, needs. Expert Our Source offers a fantastic framework for this. Pace, space, and grace. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. This framework comes from a Stanford lecturer named Collins Dobbs, and it's really quite brilliant. Simple but powerful. Pace just means slow down. Literally, don't rush to fill silences. Think of NPR journalist Deborah Schifrin. She has this technique called the killer last question. After she thinks the interview is basically over, she'll often just wait in silence.
Really? Just wait.
Just wait. And often, the interviewee will then share the most interesting things, the stuff they didn't say when they felt more on. That silence creates the space for deeper reflection.
That's a brave tactic. It requires patience, but I can see how it would force a more genuine response.
It really does.
Yeah.
Then there's space. This is about actively creating room for reflection in the conversation. You can do this by asking clarifying questions like, what makes you believe that? Or maybe by paraphrasing what you hear. Something like, so it sounds like you're kind of living in that space for a little moment.
Acknowledging their perspective.
Exactly. You could even comment gently on what hasn't been said to try and unearth underlying feelings. There's a story in the source about a boss who completely missed the subtle signs of offense after he mishandled giving Japanese business cards. He just didn't make space to notice their reaction. It highlights the cost of not creating that space.
Oof. Yeah, it's those unsaid things, those subtle cues. That can be the most critical, can't they? Okay, so pace and space. What about grace?
And grace is all about tuning into emotions, both yours and the other person's. It's about emotional intelligence in the moment. John's eulogy for his grandmother is such a powerful example here. His prepared note cards apparently went missing right before he spoke.
Oh, nightmare scenario.
Total nightmare. But his improvised eulogy ended up being more authentic, more moving, precisely because he had to respond genuinely to the audience's grief and his own emotions in that raw moment. Even Robin Williams, his famous impromptu comedy riff during a TED Talk when the tech failed, that demonstrated incredible grace. He didn't stick to a script, he tuned into the audience's awkwardness and turned it into connection and laughter.
He read the room and responded authentically. That's grace.
That's grace.
So for you, the listener, think about your last important conversation. Did you truly listen? Or were you maybe just rehearsing your response while the other person was talking? How might intentionally slowing your pace or making space with a clarifying question shift the dynamic for you? Could it lead to a deeper connection? Now, for another one of those fascinating paradoxes we keep encountering, structure. You'd think structure would impede spontaneous communication, make it rigid, but the source argues it actually enables it, like jazz musicians improvising, but still within the song's underlying chord structure, right? Or playground designers creating defined frames that actually encourage creative play within them. Expert, what are the core benefits of bringing structure to spontaneity?
It's precisely that framework that frees you up. You're not just flailing. Structure provides 4 key benefits here. First, it keeps attention. Our brains naturally gravitate towards logical narratives. Think about a simple ABABCB song structure. It feels satisfying, it draws people in, clear transitions in speech, like saying, now that we have a firm understanding of the problem, let's look at potential solutions. Those explicitly connect ideas and guide your audience along.
So it makes it easier to follow.
Much easier. Second, structure enhances stickiness and memory. Our brains are basically designed to seek out, enjoy, create, and remember structured narratives. Scientists talk about episodic memory, how we recall long-ago events as stories with a beginning, middle, end. Stories literally plug into what matters to the brain. This makes the information more memorable and also more shareable. The source mentions Raymond Nasser, a communications expert who worked with VCs. He stressed repeatability, turning a company's narrative into a kind of mythology that people could easily retell. Structure helps that.
So structure helps our brains organize and hold onto the information better, like a mental filing system.
Exactly. Which leads to the third benefit. Structure makes processing easier. Think about those 4 Dummies books. They use clear headings, summaries, icons, lots of structure to guide readers. That structure boosts what scientists call processing fluency in our brains. It means we don't have to work as hard to make sense of the information when it's presented in an organized way.
Less cognitive load again.
Less cognitive load. And fourth, structure disciplines thinking. Having a structure forces you to adhere to a certain logic. It prevents you from just flitting all over the place. It helps establish not only what you will talk about, but just as importantly, what you won't talk about. It provides focus.
Okay, that makes sense. And what structure is highlighted as being particularly brilliant for this? The source calls it the Swiss Army knife because it's so simple and versatile. There's a great example of Sarah Zeitler using it. She had to give an impromptu product launch presentation for a colleague who was out sick.
Right, with basically no prep time.
Exactly. And she used the slides that were already there as her what? This is the information. Then she explained their importance as the so what, why this matters to us. And finally, she outlined next steps as the now what. It helped her organize everything on the fly.
It's incredibly adaptable, that structure. And there are others too. Problem-solution benefit, famously used by Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah.
That's a powerful one. There's also prep, comparison, contrast, conclusion, the STAR method often used in interviews. The key isn't to learn dozens of them. It's to master 2 or 3 structures that really work for you and then practice them. Through repetition, reflection, getting feedback, make them second nature.
Got it. Find your go-to frameworks. So for you, the listener, the next time you're about to explain something, maybe even just in an email or a quick chat, try framing it using what so, what now, what. Just see how that simple framework helps you organize your thoughts and make your message clearer, even when you haven't had much time to prepare. Okay, we're nearing the end of our core principles. The final F word, as the source calls it, for effective spontaneous speaking is focus. This is all about delivering clear, sharply focused messages, conveying everything an audience needs to know, and crucially, only that information. Nothing extraneous. Think of Steve Jobs introducing the original iPod. Just 5 words, right? 1,000 songs in your pocket. Bam!
That phrase is the absolute epitome of focus, just crystal clear. Our source breaks focus down into 4 essential dimensions. The first dimension is precision. This means really knowing your specific goal. What exactly do you want your audience to know or feel or do as a result of your communication? And remember, emotions are key here. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman's research suggests that emotions drive something like 90 to 95% of our decisions. So understanding that feeling goal is vital.
So it's not just about transmitting data, it's about eliciting a specific response or action, often an emotional one.
Exactly. Then there's relevance. Why should this audience care about what you're saying right now? Jim Koch, a founder of Samuel Adams Beer, he practiced what he called the golden rule of selling. Never ask customers to do something that is not in their long-term best interest. It means you have to tailor your message to their needs, their context, their interests, not just rely on your own enthusiasm for the topic.
Make it about them, not you.
Got it.
What's third?
Third is accessibility. This is about avoiding jargon, avoiding unnecessary complexity, making it easy to grasp. Apply the grandmother test. Could your grandmother understand this? Or take a cue from Lego instruction manuals. They're designed brilliantly for kids who can't even read yet. Purely visual, step by step.
Universal understanding.
Right. And using chunking, breaking information into smaller digestible pieces, creates multiple starting moments for your audience, keeping them engaged even if their attention dips for a second.
Okay, precision, relevance, accessibility, and the last one.
And finally, concision, just being crisp, be brief. As the author's wife apparently practices with her children, minimal words. Fewer words create fewer opportunities for misunderstanding or endless back and forth.
Good parenting advice, too.
Seems like it. Shorter messages are simply easier for our brains to process and remember. Think about Google's mission statement: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Just 12 words.
Seems so simple now.
But apparently, distilling it down to those 12 words took months of intense effort. A real labor of love. Concision takes work.
It's clear that less is definitely more when it comes to focus. It's tempting, though, to try and perfect all 4 at once.
Right, but the source cautions there's no perfect. Being too precise or too relevant or too accessible or even too concise can backfire. It's about finding the right balance for the specific situation and audience.
Makes sense. It's always context dependent. So for you, the listener, think about a complex idea you often have to explain. Maybe at work, maybe to family. How could you apply that grandmother test? Or maybe try a brevity challenge. Could you summarize the core idea in, say, 25 words or less? How would that effort help make it more focused for your audience?
All right, now that we've unpacked these core principles, calm, unlock, or dare to be dull, redefine, listen, structure, and focus, let's quickly see how they apply in practice. Let's look at some specific, really common scenarios we all face. These are practical frameworks you can basically put into your toolkit and use right away. Yeah, let's make it super practical. For small talk, often dreaded, right? The first commandment, according to the source, is make the conversation about the other person. So instead of using shift responses, like if they say, I went to Costa Rica, you immediately say, oh, I went there too. Try using support responses.
Like what?
Like, oh, Costa Rica, tell me more. Or, what excited you most about that trip? Keep the focus on them. And if you need to leave the conversation, use the white flag approach, a polite, clear exit that still leaves the other person feeling heard and appreciated. Something like, it's been great chatting, I need to mingle a bit more, but let's connect later.
Smooth. Okay, what about things like toasts or introductions?
For toasts, tributes, and introductions, crucially, remember these are gifts to the honoree. They're not about you. Use the what structure. It's easy to remember. Why are we all here today? How are you connected to the person being honored? Anecdotes or learnings share a brief, positive story. Like that amazing anecdote in the source about the Klingon and Romulan who met and fell in love at a Star Trek convention.
I love that one. It's memorable because it's specific.
Exactly. And finally, thank. Thank the person, maybe wish them well, keep it brief, be sincere, and consider the audience's emotional state.
What? Got it. Okay, what about pitches? Those feel like really high-stakes, spontaneous moments.
Definitely. For pitches, the recommended structure is problem solution benefit. It's classic for a reason. First, clearly define the problem your audience faces. Then detail your solution. And finally, lay out the benefits for them. What's in it for them? The author's 12-year-old son apparently used this structure perfectly to convince his dad to buy him an electric guitar.
No way! How?
He framed it beautifully. Problem: Dad, I'm bored and need a creative outlet. Solution: this electric guitar. Benefits: it'll make me more creative. I'll make good music for us. It might even help me with math.
Kids got game.
Yeah.
Problem, solution, benefit. Very persuasive.
Totally. Now, for Q&A sessions after a presentation, treat it as a dialogue, not like you're dodging bullets. Use the ADD structure. Answer the question directly and concisely. Then detail with a specific concrete example or brief story. Finally, describe the value or relevance. Why does this answer matter? This helps you command the room, sound credible. The source tells of a student who became a CFO and mastered this ADD structure to handle tough questions during a challenging strategic shift at his company.
Answer, detail, describe value. ADD. Okay. What about giving feedback? That can be tricky spontaneously.
Super tricky. For feedback, the goal is to frame it as a collaborative invitation, not a harsh judgment. Use the 4 I's. Start with information, a specific, objective observation of the behavior I noticed in the meeting. Then, explain the impact it had, usually on you or the team. When that happened, I felt, or the impact was. Then, make an invitation to collaborate on a solution. What are your thoughts on how we could approach this differently? And finally, gently mention the implications, the potential consequences, positive or negative, of action or inaction. If we can adjust this, I think. This fosters ownership and generally leads to much stronger working relationships than just criticism.
Information, impact, invitation, implications, the 4 I's. Lots of good acronyms here. What about when we're the ones who messed up? Apologies.
Ah, yes, apologies. When you make a mistake, apologize well and sincerely. Use the AAA structure. First, acknowledge clearly what you did and take responsibility. I acknowledge that I missed the deadline. Second, appreciate the impact it had on others. I understand this caused problems for the team. Third, state the action you will take to make amends or prevent it from happening again. Moving forward, I will.
Okay.
Key things here. Don't pre-apologize. I'm sorry if anyone was offended. And don't over-apologize. Just be specific, clear, and brief.
Acknowledge, appreciate, action. AAA.
Simple.
Direct. Wow. Okay, these applications aren't just, theoretical ideas. They feel like really practical frameworks, like having a safety net. They provide that structure we talked about, allowing you, the listener, to be more authentic and effective even when you're caught off guard. It's about having those tools ready in your back pocket when you need them most. So this deep dive, it's really shown that effective spontaneous communication, it isn't some kind of magical inborn talent that only a lucky few possess.
Not at all.
It's a skill. It's something built through, thoughtful preparation, intentional practice, and adopting these powerful mindsets we've discussed. From managing the anxiety and embracing imperfection, daring to be dull, to listening deeply, structuring your thoughts, and really focusing your message. Every single step contributes to becoming a more confident, more effective communicator. I keep thinking about that story of Annabelle Williams, the Paralympic gold medalist. She had to co-host a primetime live broadcast with just 4 hours' notice.
Incredible pressure.
Right. And then her teleprompter went blank mid-show. She had to spontaneously talk about sports she admitted she knew next to nothing about, but she didn't freeze. She drew on her years of training as an athlete. She reframed the moment as an opportunity. She improvised a few facts, connected with her co-host, and just confidently transitioned the broadcast.
And it was seen as brilliant.
Right.
It led to more opportunities.
Exactly. It was exhilarating and brilliant, and it opened doors for her. Annabelle's story, and really so many others in our source material, they seem to emphasize this one profound truth: mastering spontaneous communication. It isn't really a final destination. It's not like earning a black belt in martial arts where you've sort of arrived.
Good analogy.
The source says it's more like the first step on an infinite journey, a journey of continuous learning, continuous growth. It's about trusting the process, trusting the practice, trusting yourself, and maybe recognizing that courage isn't really the absence of fear, is it? It's the willingness to act in spite of the fear.
Well said.
So, for you listening right now, here's your call to action, your challenge if you like. Pick one. Just one thing from everything we've discussed today. Maybe it's the simple act of holding something cold when you feel nervous. Maybe it's deciding to dare to be dull in your next team meeting. Maybe it's committing to asking one clarifying question to show you're really listening. Or maybe practicing a simple structure like what so, what now, what before you explain something. Just pick one strategy and apply it. Try it out in your very next spontaneous communication moment, big or small. Trust your training, take a small risk, and maybe discover the surprising joy of speaking up without freaking out.